welcome to today's CyberThreat report. Today is July 28th, 2011, and joining us today we have Jim Clausing, Dave Gross, John Hogoboom, and I'm Brian Rexroad. Just a reminder, if you have any feedback or questions about our program, please feel free to contact us at cyberthreat@list.att.com. And on today's agenda, we have several topics to speak with you about. One is the hacker group Anonymous. We'll talk a little bit about some of the participants in that attack activity and some of the things that are sort of precipitating from some recent arrests around that. Jim Clausing will talk to us a little bit about reminding us about physical security and some of the things that tend to show up when we are a little bit lax about that topic. We'd also like to chat a little bit about some recent APT events, advanced persistent threats, describe a little bit about what we mean by that and how we should be paying attention to the activity associated with it. And then last but not least, we'll discuss some of the recent internet weather activity anomalies that we've been noticing on the internet. So on the first topic here, what I'd like to share with you is a little bit of the information that's coming out in the press related to Anonymous. If you haven't heard of the group Anonymous, it's worth looking into a little bit. There's also a closely related group called WalsSec that was around for a little while, seems to have dissolved. One of the activities that's been coming up recently is there have been a number of arrests associated with activities associated with Anonymous, and I think it's important to kind of understand a little bit about how some of the operations of this group really take place. And in fact, one of the things that sort of come to the surface is the fact that at least some of the folks that are suspect to have participated in these events didn't realize, or at least claiming not to realize, that some of the activities that they were performing have been illegal. And in fact, the group Anonymous has tried to advertise that some of those activities that they are performing, in particular the denial of service attacks, they've tried to make a sort of a case that that activity is not illegal. It is, in fact, a illegal act to disrupt computer services of another organization. And so that's one of the things that has sort of come out, that is, in fact, some of the folks, I'm showing an example article here that indicated that some of the suspects that were arrested have sort of indicated that, they didn't know they were performing an illegal act. In fact, the tools that are provided don't really attempt to provide any anonymity associated with those attacks as well. That is, if you participate in one of the denial of service attacks that Anonymous is supporting, you're not hiding your own identity, you're revealing that, and that is consequently resulting in some arrests of the folks that participate in those. So it's sort of another aspect that's interesting or important to note, that is, those folks that are participating in those attacks may not be, in fact, a core part of the attack activity. It may be, in fact, the denial of service attacks are being used as a distraction so that other, perhaps, penetration attacks or other data theft type attacks might be taking place sort of by the core group. Now, some of this is conjecture on my part. I don't have an insider view of the activity, but it is one of the things that seems to be apparent. So that may be something you want to pay attention to in the course of protecting your environment. If you do become subject to a denial of service attack or a target of one of these events, certainly don't let up on your vigilance in protecting other assets and resources. We talked a little bit about the physical security analogy and the association with password protections, but, physical security is one of the things we need to pay attention to, right, Jim?
Yeah, and it just came to mind again for me last week. I was out of town, and I was not on the webcast, and I happened across a wiring closet that should have been locked up, and with the heat waves we've been having here lately, it's of 105 outside right now, and this wiring closet had the door propped open and then a fan sitting in there. Apparently the equipment inside had heated up, the air conditioning wasn't adequate, and somebody had propped the door open with the fan to try to cool it off. And we tend to, especially in these webcasts, we talk about cyber threats and we talk about the vulnerabilities and how we get attacked across the network. But if somebody can get physical access, then it's often game over. And it's not something that we always necessarily think about as computer security professionals. But it's something that we do need to be aware of. We do need to be reminded from time to time. We need to, when we're in the office building, confront the guy that's walking down the hallway that doesn't have a badge on, or see the door propped open to a wiring closet or a machine room. Say something. We need to watch something, because somebody can walk in there and plug into the switch in that wiring closet. Now they are on the inside of your network. They're inside most of your defenses. They can monitor traffic going by. They can potentially attack the machines on your network without you necessarily even noticing, because they're inside the IDS. So it was just something that was brought home to me again last week, and I'm sure it was because of the heat. The air conditioning wasn't sufficient in that closet, and just something that I was reminded of, so I figured it was worth reminding our viewers about.
Absolutely.
On a related note to that, I think it was probably 3 or 4 months ago, Michael's, the store, had a very physical, blended, technological threat against them. And even smaller brick-and-mortar stores have the same issues that they need to keep in mind. But basically, a bad guy goes into the store, waits for a sales clerk not to be at the checkout where they would normally ring you up, and they'll actually swap out the credit card machine with one of theirs. And that credit card machine works fine to charge the processor, or maybe even doesn't, but it will capture the credit card information as people swipe it through, and then they can go swap it back out again, or it can relay back up to someplace, because usually they're plugged into a phone line. So another type of physical threat where you need to keep in mind that if you are running a small store or even a large one, make sure nobody's tampering with anything that's directly accessible to your customers.
Yep. And yet another example, I thought you had a very good segment on the USB devices last week on the CyberThreat webcast, and along those lines, if somebody can walk in and stick a USB device in a machine that's unattended, it has the potential of introducing, either intentional or unintentionally, introducing malware into the environment, or perhaps stealing data in the course of doing that. So.
On a related note to that, I was at a car sales place with my mom over the weekend, and there was a workstation just sitting out there that was responsible for, I guess, making temporary keys or something like that for the vehicles. It was running Windows, had a USB port, easily accessible. It was right in their little area where you sit and wait, for your salesperson to finish your paperwork and stuff. And I was thinking, I could just jam something in there. Windows Auto Run will probably scoop it up and run whatever payload I stick on that thumb drive. So, something to keep in mind.
Yeah, something that
do that. Tends to be
Okay, very good. I guess another short statement that I wanted to sort of make about is related to APT events. I just want to sort of point out, APT refers to Advanced Persistent Threats. These tend to be the kinds of events that are hidden under activities. And so it's, whereas your typical botnet or malware might try to infect whatever resources it happens to be compatible with, for example, APT events are a case where some research is being done. Somebody is trying to target a specific organization. There's probably specific information they're trying to steal, or specific systems they're going to try to take control of. One of the most notable and probably the most sophisticated discoveries so far is related to Stuxnet. So that's sort of the type of scenario that we're concerned about here. I just wanted to sort of share with you that we have been doing some analysis and investigation into APT-related events, and we have been doing that for a little over a year now, and have found that it seems like the activity is accelerating, that there is a lot of data theft activity taking place. Obviously, we can't get into a lot of the details of that here, but I wanted to at least make sure that if you don't have some sort of a program or some sort of strategy that you're developing for protection against APT things beyond sort of the routine incidents and infections, these are designed to sort of be hidden, stay under the radar, not be easily discoverable. You're really putting some potential business opportunities at risk. That is, you may be losing intellectual property about your business, and there is potential that there could be disruption of your business if they should choose to do that. So something that is probably important to pay attention to.
On that note with the APT, we have been, I agree, I think we've been doing fair to good. It's kind of hard to judge because we're not sure how much is really out there that we're missing. But we have been picking up quite a bit of it, notifying customers of it. Last week, I think it was, there was another APT threat that came out from F-Secure. They put a report out on it, and it was basically a lot of these come into you as a spear phishing type of email. So be cautious of emails. I'm not saying it's the only way, but it tends to be the typical way. It was an email that purported or was asking for papers for a strategic missile, something or another, and it was targeted at defense contractors. We added that to our tracking. We actually did pick some stuff up on that, some victims that we've notified. So something to keep in mind. Watch out for any strange-looking emails, even if it looks like somebody that you might normally do business with or communicate with via email. If you're not expecting it, think twice before clicking on any links or opening any attachments that are in those emails.
Yeah, absolutely. Very good.
And the payload was not detected by any antivirus initially either. So
that's quite often the case, as we found. Is that right? Yep. Okay, so the next segment here, we'll talk a little bit about the internet weather. I have the recent anomalies up on the board here. And the first one here is one that John talked about last week as a part of the recent internet activity anomalies. This is scanning activity on port 23. All attributes that we measure associated with scanning activity were triggered in terms of alarms. That is in the number of source IP addresses that are doing the scanning, the number of flows, and the number of packets associated with that. A related activity is scanning activity on port 22 as well. This is SSH, port 23 being Telnet, the port 22 being SSH. And again, we're seeing a reasonable amount of activity on there. So those are the two that are highlighted with the red arrow here. So that's the primary thing we'll talk about here. There are a couple of other sets of activity that have recently been talked about. One is we've seen sort of a resurgence in the growth of activity associated with port 21315. We'll talk about that briefly. And there was just a little bit of activity, a short surge of activity on, and this is scanning activity again on port 3389. And that is a remote desktop protocol. And I don't think I have a view graph on that, but it was not actually it was just a small blip in terms of an increase in activity. So let's take a quick look at the port 22 and the port 23 activity, and I'll give you a little background on this. So here it is. We have activity associated with scanning on port 22 and port 23. We're looking at the number of sources that are scanning on that port, number of source IP addresses that are scanning. This is a 30-day view of the activity, and starting around, I guess, July 19th, July 20th, we started to see some spikes in activity that were roughly significant. That is going up from a noise floor of maybe about 100 or so, jumping up to about 4,000 sources scanning. This was a little bit sporadic at that time, and then right around the 23rd of July, we started to see some significant increases. And I'm pointing out here that this is actually well over 14,000 unique source addresses that are scanning on this port, that is port 23 here on the red lines. Almost 15,000 sources within that 1 hour period that we detected doing that scanning activity. The other thing I sort of wanted to point out here is that the activity certainly is continuing. It's well beyond what John had reported last week. And it is also forming what appears to be a diurnal pattern. That is, there seems to be a daily pattern of activity. Actually, it seems to be even showing perhaps some time zones associated with that activity. The other thing I wanted to share with you here is that is more specifically the distribution of sources of that scanning activity, and this is specifically from an autonomous system number point of view, that is the network service providers that are providing the transport. And John had also reported this last time that the vast majority of these, we counted in the example report that I looked at, around 7,000, just short of 7,000 of the sources of the total of about 9,000 sources that were originating from Korea Telecom. Now, I assembled a little bit of a report on this topic, forwarded it to the CERT.org in the United States, as well as the Korean CERT organization, just to make sure that they're aware of this activity and to see if there's something that they want to do about it. To our knowledge, the attack vector that's being used here is password guessing. We do have a honeypot that picks up some of the activity, and one of the things we found a little bit interesting about it is that some of the passwords that are being guessed are not ones that you would typically expect to be ones that are being guessed. And so there's a possibility that there's some sort of a source of information that is being used to help augment the dictionary that they're using in their password guessing attacks. And I suspect that what has happened here is perhaps there's either a configuration error or perhaps a password that has made it into that password guessing list that is able to perform some sort of exploit in that environment. We've talked about it in the past. A lot of times these attacks are targeting either DSL router devices or some sort of a network device as opposed to necessarily attacking end-user computers. And that can make it very difficult to pick up. The end users aren't going to see it. There generally isn't a firewall there. Those devices generally aren't running antivirus software. So it does make it a little more difficult to recognize this type of event. The next thing I was going to talk a little bit about is just to provide an update. I think we reported on this previously as well, but it is continuing to increase. This is activity on port 21315 UDP. It is point-to-point activity. That is, we see a lot of activity associated, particularly with consumers in this case. I believe it to be innocuous, although because we have not made any direct association with malicious activity here. But there have been some reports of activity associated with this port. That is, there was a threat report associated with some malware that had been picked up that makes connections on this port. So we're keeping a close eye on it, continuing to investigate it, and if you happen to have any information on maliciousness associated with this type of activity, if it's starting to show up in your enterprise, for example, certainly we'd like to hear from you about it.
It looks like it's really started to ramp up over the past 7 days.
Absolutely.
Interesting.
Yeah. I think that covers our topics for the program today. Just as, again, a reminder, if you want to provide feedback, if you have questions or recommendations on topics we should cover, contact us at cyberthreat@list.att.com. And this program is available from the AT&T Tech Channel. That's techchannel.att.com. It's available as a podcast from iTunes. Just search for the AT&T Cyber Threat Report. And similarly with YouTube, you can search for the AT&T Cyber Threat Report. It's posted there as well. I want to thank you for joining us. Today we had, again, Jim Clausing, Dave Gross, John Hogoboom, and I'm Brian Rexroad. Thanks for joining us.